There are very few things evangelical apologists have in common with militant atheists, in terms of ideology at least. Yet we find they can sometimes be in a strange state of agreement when it comes to very specific culture war issues. The picture gets a little clearer when you realize the men we're going to be looking at tonight are white nationalists first, and whatever religious, or lack thereof, identity they profess comes in a distant second place in their personal priorities. When you see Frank Turek parroting Heritage Foundation talking points, that isn't a surprise. Frank knows he's been saying outrageously wrong things for decades now. But when a man who was once a famed skeptic shows up at a Heritage Foundation funded conference to help spread the same message, singling out one particular minority and painting them as not deserving of human rights, it makes you wonder what's going on. And perhaps more importantly, while both kinds of men make a big deal about protecting women and children, the same line the conservatives have used against gay people before us and brown people before that and immigrants through all of history, they're all very careful to never mention the one group of people who always seem to be the ones actually hurting women, children, and minorities. Wealthy, pale males like themselves. Go figure. Welcome to Factual, a bonus show that pops up from time to time when I've both the availability and just regular ability to do one, where we talk about the realities of trans and intersex people like me. If you're new here, my name is Ember, and I'm an intersex woman of transgender experience and a proponent of human rights, among other things. This episode will be a little different, with multiple clips for us to dig through, and for the first time, the ability for you, if you're watching live, to call in with questions. And if you're not watching live, please take a second to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can join us live for a future show. Let's hit it. We're going to start out with Frank.
There are at least 5 flaws in transgender ideology. The first is...
First of all, transgender ideology is not a thing. It's sort of a white nationalist dog whistle. It's really only them who says that. Transgender people exist. That isn't an ideology. It's sort of like how creationists say polystrata fossils when they mean upright fossils. They like, people on the conservative side like to invent novel terms for things so that you can't Google them and get the real definitions of things.
Is the design of the body proves there are only 2 genders.
Well, the design of the body has nothing to do with genders, but do go on.
As a human being, you can produce only eggs or sperm. There is no...
No, that's actually not true. But also, the gametes you produce are not your gender. That's... What a wild interpretation. I know where he gets this. Pseudoscientist Colin Wright, who likes to hang out with the Epstein Island crowd, but apparently wasn't ever invited himself, posits this as an affirmative defense for the only 2 sexes model, but it falls apart immediately upon the most light scrutiny. But whatever. Frank just needs to cite another biologist and say, oh, I got it from a biologist. Don't talk to me. It's from a science guy. You know, that's the wonder of cherry picking. Apologists do that all the time, so it's kind of expected. But no, your gender is not your gametes. Holy shit.
No third reproductive output and hence no third gender.
That's an interesting statement, because while Frank likes to conflate gender with sex, and gametes are also not your sex, they're the product of your sex. It's not important. The point is, intersex people exist. Behold, here I am existing and whatnot. So are we called intersex because we produce intergametes? Of course not. We're called intersex because we have a mixture of sex characteristics. which goes to show that your sex is not just one thing, because it isn't just one thing that determines your sex. To have a mixture of characteristics, there's more than one characteristic. Unless, of course, Frank would like to argue we do somehow produce intergametes. And that would be an interesting discussion.
Of course, there are certain individuals who cannot produce either, but that is an incapacity, not a third capacity.
Of course, there's a third thing that falls completely outside my definition, but special plead, special plead, special plead, never mind. There's still only two things.
Therefore, the claim that there are more than two genders is not based on the objective design of biology.
Well, that is true. The claim that there are two genders or more than two genders or whatever is not based on biology, because it's not even related to biology. It isn't derived from biology at all. It's derived from culture. But okay.
But on subjective mental states. Number two, transgenderism must presuppose fixed genders.
No. But let's let him explain what the hell he's talking about.
While transgender advocates deny there are only two genders, they must unwittingly presuppose only two genders for transgenderism to be possible. Why?
No. Is Frank forgetting that non-binary people exist, or gender fluid people exist, or agender people exist, or what have you? There's quite a lot of other things. I mean, I suppose I should give him partial credit for remembering trans men exist, because more often than not, it seems like when they say trans, they mean trans women, and they forget all the other kinds of trans people.
Why? Because if I'm a biological man but think I'm a woman, I must have some idea of what a man is and some idea of what a woman is in order to recognize my problem.
Okay, I think I understand Frank's straw man / misunderstanding. He thinks that trans people are looking around and saying, well, based on biology, I'm a male, but my brain says I'm a female, so I need that objective reference point. No. In reality, what's happening is we understand ourselves, who we are, what we like, how we should be, how we should move through the world, how we'd like to be treated by others, how we'd like to interact with others, the things we're interested in. The list goes on and on and on. We see these list of characteristics about ourselves, and we see people in the world, and we say this list of characteristics about myself better fits with this group of people. It doesn't matter if that group of people is based on their biology or their social situation or the way they're treated, whatever it is that society bases it on. We're looking at the reality of the people and saying we fit better with these people, regardless of what you think should arbitrarily put us with this group of people. We don't fit there. We fit here. However you want to divide that up, that's what's actually happening. And it's not based on reproductive capability, even a little bit.
Genders were completely fluid with no fixed reference points, there would be no way to recognize the mismatch between my biology and my psychology. In other words, gender dysphoria could not exist without two known fixed genders.
And that just doesn't make any damn sense, especially in cultures where there are more than two genders. Like, for example, the ancient Hebrews, which had 8 genders. And a person could transition from one to another. And there's a bunch of other cultures where there's multiple genders. For instance, some Native American groups, you're probably familiar with the concept of two-spirit people. It's been brought up a lot in recent years. That's another umbrella term for a whole bunch of different cultural understandings. And I myself am quite clearly not Native American. So to summarize, some groups perform a ritual where a person who has declared themselves to be two-spirit accepts the roles of both in some capacity. They don't go from one to the other. They become both. So what are we doing, Frank?
Likewise, in order for me to attempt to transition into a woman, I would have to first know what a woman is.
And no, you wouldn't. See, there's what do you call it? A thought experiment you can do, right? Like if you imagine yourself living your life isolated, whether it's on a desert island or in a metal room or a spaceship going to Alpha Centauri, whatever the case may be, you're by yourself. You go through videos left in your computer or on your phone or whatever it is, depending on the scenario you've picked, and you see how other humans have lived their lives, and you resonate with certain things. You say, oh, what that person is doing with the makeup, that's pretty, I want to do that. Or, oh, that person who's, constructing a building out of rocks, that looks nifty, I want to do that. Whatever the hell it is, you don't need to know there is such a thing as male or female. You don't have to have any understanding of what any given culture's version of genders are. You just be who you are. And then if that happens to align with a gender, cool. See, what Frank is not understanding is because he's coming from an authoritarian perspective where he believes it's your job as an individual to fit into the boxes that society has provided for you, who you're allowed to be. You have to go where you're told. That's it. Whereas what we're saying is be who you are and then see how that lines up with what society's currently doing. It's probably not going to be a very good fit, but there may be one that fits you more comfortably than others. Or you could join the rest of us in trying to tear the whole bullshit system down so everyone can just be who they are without having to worry about fucking boxes. One of those.
Number 3, you can change your mind, but not your biology.
Frank has said this before. We've debunked it before. It's absolutely backwards. In fact, you cannot change your mind. Pertaining specifically to being transgender, we've tried that. When the psychologists and psychiatrists first got involved in the 1950s and 60s, they tried everything they could think of to make us stop being trans. They tried antipsychotics, they tried psychotherapy, they tried electrotherapy, they tried conversion therapy, everything they could think of. Nothing changes the fact we're trans because it's not psychological, it's neurological and sometimes anatomical. But that's a whole other story. But what you can do, not only what does work and proves most effective with the best possible outcomes, but actually can happen, is changing your physical body to better reflect your brain. Yeah, we can change it. Yes, that happens. That works.
When our biology and psychology are mismatched about sex, why do we think that changing our biology instead of our mind is the way to fix the issue? We don't do that with
because of science. We've tested it, we've tried it. This is what works and the other way doesn't. If you aren't familiar with any of this stuff, I keep a section on my website specifically for gender-related science. We've got trans biology, we've got the sexist sports myth stuff, we've got trans youth science, we've got intersex science, we've got more trans science, sex gender. There's a bunch of stuff up here, betterthanember.com. And that's just one page of the website. We have a bunch of goodies up there. Feel free to use it, reference it, do all the things. I put it together not just so I can quickly reference things that I reference frequently, but for other people. I understand there's a bunch of other people who've put together reference libraries. I try to have a very comprehensive one, and it probably has resources you may not find elsewhere. Okay, Frank and others bring up the anorexic thing a lot. First of all, it's kind of bullshit to say an anorexic falsely thinks they're overweight. You can be anorexic and overweight. Exhibit A. Anorexia is an eating disorder, not a body weight disorder. But also, it is a disorder. It is not a dysphoria. The important difference is that with an eating disorder, it's you're seeing something that isn't there. You're seeing yourself differently from how you really are. And for that, counseling is the way to go. With a trans person, you're seeing what is really there. And that's the problem. You can't counsel someone into having different anatomy. That doesn't work. Oh, the video's not back on screen. Well, shit. I hit the button and it didn't change. Very rude. All right, I'll back it up a little bit.
Falsely think they're overweight, we don't say, you're right, let's get you liposuction. Or when someone who honestly believes.
So that's the continuation of that is when you see an anorexic person, you don't say, let's get you liposuction. But also sometimes you do, but that's a whole other thing.
They need to cut off a totally healthy body part, a condition known as transabled.
This is another one of those instances where the right-wingers just make up something. That's not what that's called. There's a very rare condition where people do feel an urge, a necessity to remove what you might consider a very healthy body part. It is called body integrity dysphoria. It's poorly understood because there's not many cases, but the primary working theory is neurological mismatch of the brain's mapping of the body, often persistent since early childhood. You know what? We have a study for that here from the National Institutes of Health, which here in the US is somewhat less reliable than it used to be. But this is a case report that speaks of researching previous case reports about body integrity dysmorphia. From existing case reports, it does not appear that psychotherapy or medication significantly change symptoms, although references, but also the evidence is limited. While unpalatable to many professionals, there are reports that patients who undergo amputation have a lower perceived disability after amputation. And there's more references. So to Frank's point, that is exactly what we do, because there is no proven successful psychotherapy or medication. And if we don't treat these individuals who have body integrity dysphoria, they often will engage in self-surgery and end up mutilating or accidentally deleting themselves. So yeah, sometimes we do actually cut off the healthy tissue to protect their lives. But, heaven forbid Frank know what the fuck he's talking about. He'll just make up a term that sounds vaguely trans-related. Fear, be very afraid. Oh, first of all, perfectly healthy. That's a whole other thing. But if you want to talk about removal of things, many of you in the live chat have already figured out where this is going, because a few years ago, we caught Frank doing a little something. Let's have a look. Let's have a little refresher. Frank had gender affirming top surgery. Oh, he had perfectly healthy breast tissue removed? Say it ain't so. The audio's not carrying through? Well, that is absolutely frustrating. Hold please. Let me see if I can fix that. Is that working any better? I reset the damn thing. You know what? I'll turn on the audio briefly. I normally keep the audio off for my own things. So that there isn't audio overlap. But now I'm trying to. Oh, goodness. All right. Let me try. Okay, first I'll go back to the other video and make sure we still have an audio connection. And if that's working, then I'll grab the video from another source. Did that come through that split second there? I'll also check back over here. Of course, now the live stream is falling behind. Details. Nothing, huh? Well, shoot. It says, Okay, new idea. I'll remove the video and we'll just get rid of it, and then we'll try to reconnect to the video, and maybe that will help. Live broadcasting, folks. Don't you love it? All right. Let's see if this does the trick.
Treat mental dysphoria with psych.
Better? Maybe? Jason says, should we light a candle or something? Yeah, thoughts and prayers, send demons, all sorts of things. Oh, I really don't want to have to like reset the entire system, because then I'll have to reload all the windows and it will take all day. Okay, I see yeses. I assume that's the sound is working rather than we should do thoughts and prayers or something. All right, now let me switch over here. Why do I have double? You know what? I'm not gonna mess with it. It's fine. We'll try this and see how it goes. All right, let's take it from the top. Live broadcasting.
Have you ever heard of gynecomastia?
I had it.
And okay, so did you have that fixed?
Yes, I did.
And did that make you feel affirmed in your gender?
It had nothing to do with.
Okay, if you heard that, you just heard Frank confess to having perfectly healthy breast tissue removed. He had gender-affirming top surgery. Now, this is by far the most common form of gender-affirming surgery. Male breast removal. It makes up something like 18 times as many surgeries as trans boys having double mastectomies. And I happened to look up those statistics today, in fact. You know what? I'll just pull up the email that I wrote it in, because I was writing it in an email, which is why I looked it up. Hold, please. Okay, let's see. According to the American Society of Plastic Surgeons, in 2024, there were 26,480 gynecomastia patients, males having breast tissue removed. According to the transphobic group Do No Harm, which is a hate group on the Southern Poverty Law Center's list of pseudoscientific anti-trans organizations funded by the Heritage Foundation, according to this extremely biased group, they say there were 5,000 total trans surgeries, including both top and bottom surgery, because they want to make the numbers as scary as possible, between 2019 and 2023, for a total of 1,425 per year on average. It's 18 times more unnecessary mutilation. So what exactly are we doing, Frank?
With my gender, okay? So it had to do with the fact that it looked really odd.
Yeah, weird how having parts that you associate with a gender that isn't yours makes you feel really uncomfortable. That is gender dysphoria, Frank. Yes, that's what that is.
You just said that having that surgery made you feel better about yourself.
That has nothing to do with transgender surgery. I was having breast tissue removed. Okay.
Exactly, Frank. What's the problem with breast tissue? You perfectly healthy reproductive adjacent organs. What's the issue? You could have had the ability to feed your child, Frank. Do you hate children, Frank? Is that the issue?
Okay, I was always a man.
That never mind past Ember, because she tried really, really hard, but I'm a little uncomfortable with past number. That is the actual point, though. Trans people are our genders. We stop trying to be the people like Frank tell us to be and just be ourselves, sometimes for the first time in our lives. That's one of the reasons trans people are generally so fucking happy. When the government gets the hell off our backs and lets us, access the healthcare that the healthcare professionals agree we fucking need. But never mind.
Psychiatry, not surgery. I mean, if your daughter claims she's a
yeah, like we said, psychiatry does not actually help with neurological things. You can't talk someone into having different body parts, but you can fix the body parts. Like what Frank is suggesting is that we should take cancer patients and talk them into not having tumors. No, sometimes you have to do surgery to fix what's not right.
Mermaid, would you take her off the coast and drop her in the ocean? Of course not. You'd say, honey, your mind is playing tricks on you. Let's get...
Well, okay, first of all, when kids say, I feel like a mermaid, I want to be a mermaid, it's not the same thing. Kids are playing pretend. They're known to do that. For another slightly more important thing, trans people exist, mermaids don't. So, like if a kid said, I want to be a firefighter, you wouldn't say, well, honey, your mind is playing tricks on you. That's just a delusion. No, you'd say, absolutely, you can be a firefighter. You're going to need to do this and this and this and this. You need to be strong and fast and however the rest of that song goes. Be hero through the end of the night and whatever. But it's doable. It's a thing you can do. Yes.
Get you some counseling. If we are going to love people, we must tell them the truth that you can't change your biology, but you can change your mind.
And of course, that's half true. You can change your biology. You can change your mind, but not about something like identity, because this is another fundamental misunderstanding for people like Frank, is he likes to pretend identity is saying something that you want to project outward, but isn't necessarily true. Like, Frank might say, I am a Christian. It's something he wants to identify as, but may or may not be actually true. We generally just take him at his word at that because we don't know what's actually in his head. But when we say identity, we mean something more along the lines of, my name is Ember, as in present your identification, driver's license, passport, birth certificate, whatever. That's what we mean by identity. But of course, Frank will always choose the interpretation of a word that best suits his propagandistic purposes.
Number 4, sex is not assigned at birth. For transgenderism to succeed,
it factually is, yes.
People must come to believe that gender is arbitrary and can be chosen.
No, because once again, we're not choosing our gender. We are our gender. We're learning the language to describe it. Much like you may be male or female when you're first born, but you can't tell someone that until you learn those words. And in other languages, they're different words. So let's not pretend there's something elemental about the labels we put on things. That's not how anything works.
That's why transgender advocates work overtime to try and change common sense definitions. Not only do they...
We don't, actually. Although the fact that Frank tries to pretend we do may be an indicator that that's exactly what he's doing, because it seems like every single time what we're definitely not doing, we get accused of doing, it's because it's the people doing the accusing are actually doing it. Weird how that works.
They insist that everyone state their pronouns, but they also declare that sex is assigned at birth. Now,
we're not just declaring that, though. It's literally true. And in some cases, it's It's not even assigned, it's made up. Because we have this false system where there's only two. Now, this is not the same as sex, but I'm also an intersex person, and so this really irks me. There aren't only two. And this, because of these cultural assumptions in the United States, this is the fatal flaw in Frank's ideology for a change. The fact that we have to do surgeries on intersex infants in order to prop up this cultural idea that there's only males and only females, that is damaging healthy tissue. That is causing problems for the sake of ideologies that do not match the reality of biology. So, oops.
Everyone knows that sex isn't assigned at birth, but discovered at birth. It's not like doctors,
Everyone knows. Okay.
nurses, or parents arbitrarily decide the sex.
Sometimes, well, okay, it's usually not arbitrary, but sometimes it is. For instance, Exhibit A. We don't have time to go through the whole relevant story. You can listen to past episodes. You can stick around and it'll definitely come up another time in the future. Subscribe if you haven't. But TLDR, I was born with mixed characteristics, and a person came in and took a peek and wrote down a letter on a piece of paperwork. And then another person came in and took a peek and did a surgery that didn't match what was written on the paperwork. Because it's arbitrary.
Of a newborn, they discover it. Number 5, there's no basis for transgender rights.
Well, okay, let's give him a second to explain what the hell he's talking about, because this is Frank's style, is he likes to make a bold claim and then immediately walk it back into something more reasonable-ish sounding. But human rights for all humans. This is not controversial. Trans people are humans. So the only way you could make an argument that trans people shouldn't have rights is if you want to contend that trans people aren't human. And I would really love to hear that argument.
In America today, we seem to be inventing new rights every 10 minutes. But where?
Okay, it's a tired rhetorical phrase. Oh, we're just inventing new rights. First, you want to give black people rights, and then you want to give women rights, and then you're going to let people get married, and oh my goodness, the house is burning down. I realize that really, really irks the white supremacist viewpoint. And that's an added bonus, I suppose. But it's a very simple principle. It's not, we should give these people rights, we should give these people rights, we should give these people rights, we should give these people rights. We're over here saying everyone, human rights for all humans. It's not complicated, Frank.
Exactly the rights come from. They can't come from popular opinion or governments, because a right.
They literally do come from governments. That's why we have to pass laws to enshrine the expansion of rights, like when we wanted to expand citizenship, one of the many times, or we wanted to give another group the right to vote, which we've done many times. If they didn't come from government, then passing those laws seems awfully silly. And also, if they don't come from governments, then why do different governments have different sets of rights? Strange, but okay, you know, what's Frank got going on here?
Right is something you have regardless of what people say about it. Rights come from our Creator, as our Declaration of Independence declared.
I realize Frank has propaganda to peddle. He puts himself up as a Christian apologist first and foremost, despite being a white nationalist first and foremost. But that's just obviously not true. Like, the Declaration of Independence is not scripture. It is a government document, but also clearly not true, because the rights that we have today are not at all like you might find in Frank's holy book or any other holy book. And if they did come from some divine being or other, well, I mean, that would be a good piece of evidence for some divine being or other. And you would expect everyone else who believes in divine beings would be convinced of the reality of that divine being. But Frank can't show that's where rights come from, possibly because we can show they come from governments, specifically the people working through the mechanism of government, which isn't an abstract, distinct entity, but humans pulling on the machinery of power.
Because God is the ultimate standard of goodness, and he made us in his image.
Which God are we talking about? Now, again, apologist, but like, if it's the God that Frank usually peddles books for, no. I mean, he says right in his holy book, he creates evil and spreads lies and is jealous and destructive and vindictive and vengeful. Not the font of good, not even a little bit.
For a purpose. No rights of any kind exist unless God exists. Everyone is.
Where? Is I don't know. Maybe I'm a silly bean. Maybe we should ask Justin from Deconstruction Zone or someone who knows the Bible inside and out. But I don't know any place in Scripture where it says rights come from God. So Frank is just making shit up in both secular and religious circles. Amazing.
Is human rights, but God doesn't give us the right to destroy his design. The bottom line is this.
Well, I mean, he can show up and stop us then.
Love doesn't mean approving false ideas or harmful behaviors. If we truly...
True, but not relevant, unless you want to talk about religion, because you talk about Jesus being love and God is love and love, love, love like a freaking hippie. Cool, great. Love doesn't need harmful ideologies like Frank is spreading. It doesn't need false religions like Frank is spreading. Yes, I actually agree with Frank here.
We love people. We'll tell them not what they want to hear, but what they need to hear.
Cool. I'm glad you agree. Frank, Christianity's not true. And you know it. You're a lying sack of shit, taking advantage of some people to hurt other people for your own financial benefit. It's not what you want to hear, but it's what you need to hear. And you kind of already know it. And then we get the obligatory passage from Genesis, which doesn't actually mean anything regarding trans people. Like, again, male, female, not relevant to genders. But there's a reason I'm continuing to let it play for a little bit longer. We can deny that reality, but we can't change it. Well, that works for real reality. You can deny it and say magic book says thing, Earth is only 6,000 years old, talking snake tricked a rib woman into eating a magic apple so that now an undead carpenter ghost has to be invited to come live inside your heart. You can deny reality and believe that all you want, but it doesn't make it true. So, because I am inspired by Harry, the bomber guy, I like to look up things. I like to investigate things, especially when they put out a thing specifically for us to investigate. And so I wanted to get to here. Want to learn more, go to crossexamine.org/flaws. And so I did. Oops. Now, for those of you listening along, the webpage says nothing found. Want to learn more? Nothing found. And that's sort of the entire thing with crossexamine.org. there's just nothing there, or at least nothing useful. C'est la vie. Alrighty, folks, we are going to move on to our second fun source of information and adventure for today. Let's see, where did I put it? Oh, goodness. I have so many things prepared for us, and we don't have enough time to get to all of them because there's other shows starting later. First of all, reminder, this show is call-in enabled. So if you have questions or concerns or what have you, you can do that. I will take questions and comments on this episode. But also, we're not going to get through everything, but that's okay. Thank you for joining me. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll cover more stuff another day. In fact, I already have another one of these shows scheduled tentatively for next Sunday, depending on weather and all the other factors. It may even happen early. It may happen sometime during the week. Who's to say? But also, consider joining memberships. If you're not a member, it's an easy way to support the channel that gets you a whole bunch of benefits. From the lowest level at only 99 cents a month, less than the cost of a cup of coffee, you can get access to all the custom emojis here on the channel, which are mostly voted on by the members themselves. And at higher levels, you get access to member-exclusive content, lots and lots of videos that are members-only live streams. Like tomorrow, we're doing a members-only live stream in the afternoon/evening, at least Eastern time, and a bunch of other stuff. And there's higher levels too. At the top level, the Cinder level, you get your name in the credits, as well as all the other perks and bonus stuff and so forth. So do consider becoming a member and joining us, doing all the fun things. It really, really helps me continue to, not die so I can keep doing this. And I very much appreciate it. There are, of course, other ways you can support. We'll get to some of that at the end of the video, but mostly I wanted to put a little break in here while I switch over. And so now we're gonna visit Peter Boghossian. Bit of a disappointment. Used to be a street epistemologist. Now he uses his abilities to support bullshit. It's interesting, though, that he poses, his graphic includes this, asking a question and then agree through disagree. Well, strongly agree, slightly agree, neutral, slightly disagree, and strongly disagree. This is the spectrum of things. This is sort of his gimmick when he goes to live events, like GenSpect's conferences, which are funded by the Heritage Foundation because they're a white nationalist organization. But never mind that. He goes to these events and he puts on the show like he is a neutral arbiter of truth, just trying to get to the reality of what people believe and why. But that's not what he does. For instance, he goes to GenSpect conferences, a Southern Poverty Law Center designated hate group and a member of the anti-trans pseudoscience conspiracy organization funded by the Heritage Foundation. So there's that. So let's see what he's got to say today. He calls it a spectrum, but he calls it street epistemology, but he does it at white nationalist conferences. It's amazing.
Trans is entirely a culture-bound syndrome. Move.
Now, once again, he is at a GenSpect conference asking transphobes about trans things, and he expects to get reasonable answers. No, of course not, because this is propaganda. Even though he is one of the top names in the Atheists for Liberty organization. The For Liberty should tip you off. Longtime members of the channel will recall that time that I had their president on and grilled him about the things he actually said and why he supported white nationalist organizations over and above humanism or even atheism. Very peculiar that. Peter, after David Silverman, is one of their biggest voices. Isn't it interesting that he hangs out with and supports the work of white nationalists over and above his avowed dedication to atheism or anything else? Very peculiar indeed. It's also a little slow paced from time to time.
Do your people do this? Flip a coin and okay.
Oh, I guess they're flipping coin or something. Aunt Jer says, "What's GenSpec?" So, okay, 1 second. I can give you a brief overview, but I can pull up a proper overview relatively quickly. Let's see. What's the name of there's a website. It's probably on my website. That's biology, frequently asked questions, intersex stuff, trans youth science, more trans science. Maybe it's in resources. If I could remember the name, it would be awfully useful. But it's not coming to me. There's a directory of trans-related stuff, and I'm sure I have it on the website. I just have so much information on the website, I'm not sure exactly where the hell I put the damn thing. And I can't remember what the hell it's called. Okay, transgendermap.com. There's a bunch of information about various things. You know what? I'll just show the tab so y'all can follow along with what I'm doing. It is on the website. On the resources tab under additional trans resources, it's the second one down, transgendermap.com. And that brings us over here. Happy little symbol. You see how the trans symbol is mixed in with the compass thing? It's pretty cool. And let's pull up GenSpec. GenSpec? GenSpec? I think it's GenSpec. It's fine. It's fine. GenSpec versus transgender people. Oh, that's probably what we're looking for. Okay, GenSpec is, according to this website, an anti-transgender extremist group primarily opposed to medical consensus on healthcare for gender-diverse youth. Founder Stella O'Malley, who you can also look up information about her. There's if you ever have a doubt about a specific transphobe, if they're well-known enough, they're going to be in this database. That's why I'm specifically pointing it out to you folks rather than just giving an off-the-cuff answer about GenSpec, because I want to show you this and its utility. So Stella O'Malley is a global ringleader in anti-transgender extremism. GenSpec is designated a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Their positions include opposing transition for trans people under the age of 26, and also over, but never mind that, opposing laws that would ban conversion therapy on the basis of gender identity, which is to say they're in favor of conversion therapy, opposing UK clinical trials for puberty blockers through their Protecting Puberty initiative, which, I mean, I've complicated feelings on puberty blockers, but basically they block everything. They try their very best to block everything, accessing every kind of healthcare, every kind of psychological service, everything, because you don't have to kill trans people. You just make it impossible for them to live, and they'll take care of it themselves eventually. So that's fun. All right, I'll get back to the thing. Wherever the hell it is. I have so many windows open, folks.
Excellent. Okay. And you call it in the air. Tails. Oh, that's good. Let it fall. Good. It's tails. So you get to choose. You can send her over there to argue the other side, or you can put yourself over there. You can send her. Okay, good.
Okay, I see what they're doing. When there's two people who pick the same thing, he makes somebody go to the other side. Cool. You're sure to get a balanced conversation by making a person take the opposite viewpoint. What could possibly go wrong? But again, it's propaganda. It's designed to be consumed by the people who already agree with these people.
Good. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to think about it. Trans is entirely a culture-bound syndrome. Tell her why you're on the absolutely agree.
I believe that it is a culture bound because, well, I'm also thinking about the term trans, and the term trans is part of our culture now. It is part of a lexicon. So that's
somewhat true. transgender as it's currently understood is part of our culture, much the same way houses are currently understood and are part of our culture because they're things that exist. Yes.
That's why I strongly believe that without this term, a lot of people wouldn't be able to even attempt to identify with it or set forward.
He's I can't even meme this guy. He's doing the 1984, right? He's saying in the next version of the Newspeak dictionary, we're removing hundreds and thousands of words. And if people don't have the word for the thing, they can't think the thought. If you take away the word rebellion, it makes it impossible for people to think of rebellion, and therefore they can't rebel. It's genius if it made any fucking sense, because it's another one of those reification fallacies that these fuckwits are always making.
Worth more confusion.
Okay, so I know you don't believe this, to be clear,
Yeah.
but you're going to steelman it. Tell them why you absolutely disagree trans is entirely a culture.
It's interesting that the woman is the one forced to the other side, and now she has to argue against the men. Almost like the whole fucking thing is misogynistic in nature. Weird, right?
Bound syndrome.
I think the argument would be, not that I agree with this argument, but I think
So this is Lisa Duval. Just for fun and profit, let's go back over here and let's look up Lisa Duval. Lisa Duval, because I've seen her around, but I'm not super familiar with her. And here we go. We've got Lisa Duval, Derek Duval, and other various people, so on and so forth. But we can just look up her, see what she's got going on. Lisa Duval is an American psychologist and anti-transgender activist affiliated with anti-trans hate group GenSpect, and also the Society for Evidence-Based Gender Medicine, SEGM, which is very prominent at GenSpect events, especially in the United States. Duval's spouse, Derek Duval, is also involved in anti-trans activism. And they've got background information where her credentials are from. She does apparently have a doctorate from the Wright Institute. Not exactly an Ivy League name and potentially sus itself, but never mind. She was a psychologist at Berkeley Therapy and joined Pohalos, DuPont and Associates. Okay, so she was a featured speaker at the 2024 conference for the anti-trans hate group SEGM. Duval spoke on understanding and treating innate and iatrogenic borderline personality traits in gender questioning youth. That sounds vaguely scientific, but I can see how it could very easily go into hate group speak. Duval was a featured speaker at the 2025 conference for the anti-trans group GenSpect, which is where she's at now, talking to Peter. Duval spoke on misdiagnosing and mistreating fear, the clinical blind spot in working with gender dysphoria. Amazing. Point is, this is a great resource, and I really want to show you guys how well it works. Of course, it won't have everything because nobody has everything. But if you need some background on a person or an organization and you want to see if they're on the radar for, being either pro or anti-trans, transgendermap.com, which you can find from the link on my website, even though it took me a second to find it myself because I have so many fucking resources. On the resources page, additional trans resources, it's currently the second one down, transgender map. It's super fucking handy, especially while I know I have a reputation for knowing all the bad people. There's so many fucking bad people. I can't possibly know all of them. And that is a really great resource for making sure you're not missing something important. Or if I'm not around, you can check in with that. So yay. And that's just one of the many tools on the website. I bring value for free. So, feel free to send tips like Sinister Porpoise, who said this in the super chat for 256. Thank you, Porpoise, and says, keep talking and take my money. I appreciate that. But I will pause for a minute and let Peter and his friend talk for a sec.
think the argument would be that some people are just born not feeling right about themselves. There's some innate sense if they look around and they don't identify with people of their sex, and there's something innate about that. And so that hasn't been influenced, and you see it in very, very young children who aren't.
It's fascinating that they want to pretend to have a debate when they're all on the same side, because it's literally the echo chamber effect. It's like, we're going to discuss this, but you all think the same things, but you can't bring yourselves to talk to someone who, has real information and facts and things, because you'll get Rolf stomped immediately.
Socialized yet, so how would it?
It's functionally like a bunch of cultists, right? Like, say, for example, take a cult of your choice. Say they, worship blood and make a ritual out of drinking fake blood every week, and that's part of their connection ritual to their blood god, right? Hypothetically, some random hypothetical religion that's super fixated on blood, washing in blood and healing with blood and all this blood stuff. I realize it's going to get us demonetized. I've said blood too many times. But suppose you have such a cult, and there are people who are like, hey, maybe you should stop killing people and taking all their blood for your blood rituals, because you're hurting people. And so rather than talk to them about the real tangible harm they're doing in the world, they get together and hold their own conference about how they're being oppressed by the people mad that they keep killing people to take their blood. Oh, we're so persecuted. That proves the truth of our faith. But they get their own little cult together, their own little echo chamber, and they talk about how wrong everyone else is, and refuse to talk to everyone else and find out what's really going on, or where they've made mistakes in their own thinking, or educate the rest of us in where the mistakes in our thinking are, on the off chance that the magic blood actually does. Yes, Elizabeth, the Mexica cult. That's right. That's exactly what I was thinking of.
It be a culture bound or society-based syndrome. That's
Right.
what I think the opposing argument would be.
So what evidence, would there be historical evidence for that? What evidence could be used or invoked to defend that claim? Trans is entirely a culture bound syndrome. Because someone
So that's interesting. The person says the thing he agrees with, and he's like, and then he goes across and makes her steel man a position she claims she does not agree with, and then he asks for evidence. Like, the other guy can just make claims, and that's just objectively true, but she says something else, and now there needs to be evidence.
wanted to prove that, what body of evidence or discrete piece of evidence would they
To
point to?
prove that side, or
To absolutely disagree with that.
that throughout time, like you would look at Louisa May Alcott having written Jo March, like there have always been characters or people who feel differently from those of their biological sex. And there's something innate about that. And I would agree with that. So if I were back.
The fact they keep saying biological sex drives me a little bit nuts, because sex is a biological characteristic. It's not like, what else is there? Is there artificial sex? Is there spiritual sex? Well, some of them do believe in spiritual sex, so never mind, I guess.
On that side, I would agree with that. And I'd say you can have uncomfortable feelings, to put it mildly, about who you are, whether that's your sexual orientation or anything else, but that we call it trans and we have this notion of being in the wrong body. That's the cultural part. But there can be an innate feeling of wrongness.
Okay.
That's broadly on the general direction of the right page, possibly in the same neighborhood. There is a real discomfort. However you understand it, whether you understand it neurologically or psychologically or chemically or on whatever level it is, there is a real discomfort. The word you assign to it is cultural. And we know that's true, not just because other cultures call it different things, and so it's obviously cultural, but the word itself has changed in our own culture, in the English-speaking world. We used to call trans people something else. Some people find that term offensive now, but yeah.
The term culture-bound syndrome and
is entirely made up, but never mind.
social contagion are synonyms.
Ah, social contagion. It's also made up, but I mean, technically all terms are made up. That's a very special dog whistle. That refers to the study by Lisa Littman, popularized by the book Irreversible Damage, written by Abigail Schreier, which details sort of how transphobic parents think their trans kids being trans is bullshit. It was something they caught from their friends like a flu. Imagine that.
Move. There are some culture-bound syndromes that are not social contagions.
I mean, so the way Peter does this is he'll make a claim and then people will move to whether they agree or disagree with the claim, right? So what he's saying, he's not standing behind. He's not holding as objectively true. He's saying shit and then making his participants defend or attack the statement as true, which is arguably the most spineless way to do this sort of thing, but never mind that. Is it possible there? I mean, culture bound is a thing. What does it mean? What do you mean by that? Right? Like, if we're going to pretend that's a thing, then what does it mean? When you tell me what it means, then I can answer as to whether there are some cases of a thing that isn't related to it or not. But fundamentally, what we're looking at here is word games. It's the manipulation of real science, medicine, people's well-being with the introduction of technical terms and fucking word games in order to deliberately deprive a minority group of equal rights. It's exactly the same game apologists play.
We're going to do the claim again. Trans is entirely a culture-bound syndrome. Move.
Trans is entirely a culture bound. So, despite the fact that she was trying to steelman the thing and said that there is a real discomfort, she believes it's entirely cultural. But as Andrew says in the chat, if it was a cultural contagion, I would have transitioned a long time ago. I have a statistically anomalous number of trans friends, and that's true. And it's such a wild claim, because if gender was contagious, then there wouldn't even be trans people, because based on the culture we grew up in, there was no representation of us. We would have thought you have to be straight, cis, hetero, all the things. And we're still different. And we constantly are exposed to straight, cis, hetero people today. And we're still different. Like, if being exposed to cis people doesn't make us cis, then how does being exposed to a trans person make you trans? Being exposed to a left-handed person doesn't make you left-handed. Being exposed to a Christian doesn't make you a Christian. Like, even things that literally are cultural, like religion, are not contagious. The fucking hell are we doing here?
Trans is entirely a social contagion. Move.
No questions on that previous. Okay. He's just moving on.
Okay, why did you move?
You can have the feeling of being born wrong, even though you are not. And I'm.
Or maybe you are. Like, for example, what if you're born with an extra arm with 14 fingers on it? Like the doctor's like, oh shit, this baby was made by an AI. Would you then stand behind that person having that extraneous arm, even though it's perfectly healthy tissue removed, because it doesn't map with the neuroanatomy of their brain? The brain reads it as something that shouldn't be there. It causes a great deal of discomfort and it causes social difficulty. Odds are you'd probably go, that's a weird case. Let the physicians figure it out. Trans is the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, because the same gender affirming care that we need is the same gender affirming care cis people need for the same reason, like Frank's top surgery, because it made him extremely dysphoric. It was perfectly natural tissue. It was put there by God, if you believe in such things, and Frank still cut it off. He fucked with God's design to make himself feel more comfortable. Because even though it's his own natural tissue that grew there naturally, it felt wrong. So he does understand gender dysphoria, despite the fact he claims it's mythological. And most everybody else does too. Sinister says, Ember, please stay out of the mad computer scientist laboratory. You don't need to know why my android has 14 fingers. I promise I won't tell. Oh, goodness. All right, I'll give them a couple more minutes, but we do need to wrap up fairly soon. Let's see if they say anything else interesting.
I'm here on the neutral because you have had people who have been expressing themselves like the other sex even before this became a cultural phenomenon in this century. So that's why I'm neutral.
Okay, new claim. If trans...
It isn't new this century. Like, we have historical records of trans people in the 19th century, well, the 20th century, since we're in the 21st century, but I know he means within the last 100 years. But we have trans people at the turn of the 20th century. In fact, I was just in contact with Eli Ehrlich, as well as the Trans Digital Archive, trying to track down information about a new trans person in history that was brought to my attention by the wonderful Miss Bumblebee from the HiveSci channel. We're constantly finding new trans people in history and trying to like locate as much as we can about their histories before it's lost, you know? But we go all the way back, as far back as there is history. And Eli Ehrlich just released a book about it. There's so much, and it's very cool. If you're interested, I hope you'll look at it.
is entirely a social contagion, then it is possible for the world to have no trans-identified people move.
I mean, like I've said before, the way they talk about identity is a thing that you claim rather than expression of something that you are. And under that model, yeah, you could have a world with no trans-identified people. If you just let people be who they are, no one needs to be trans. Like, if we, in a weird way, I'm sort of with the idiot centrists on this one. If we just get rid of the stupid labels, then we won't have a damn problem. Remove the cis, remove the trans, let everyone just be a man or a woman or neither or something else, whatever. But let's get rid of the bullshit. The only reason it's an issue is because of these regressives who insist, no, you can't be who you are because of some arbitrary criteria that has nothing to do with that.
The world would be a better place if there were no trans-identified people.
Ooh, now, so he had to think about it. He couldn't think of any questions to ask them. This is how much his brain has rotten since he's gone over to the dark side here. He couldn't think of any questions, and he has to rephrase it into the most strong possible way to try to get some people to disagree.
I see the consternation and the pain.
Can I reverse that?
You can after one more claim. The world would be a better place if there were more trans-identified people. Move.
Oh, they pull the old switcheroo. But now people are polarizing to extremes again. And this is sort of Peter's bread and butter, is we've got two people, half of them are dead neutral, and half of them are completely disagree. Fascinating. C'est la vie. It's more than a little nutty, but it is time to wrap up. So we'll try this again. Like I said, I have another thing already set up to go. I've got a bunch more clips like this so we can do a more chill time, whatever. We will be doing this again soon. So make sure you're subscribed. Join us. That in fact is my alarm that it's time to hit the road. So that is going to do it for this time. Remember to subscribe. Join us tomorrow. We've got double streams in the morning, Job and Jugs, as well as Learn Together Live, and all the other activism and education we get up to on this channel. If you want to support what I'm doing here, there are a bunch of ways to do that, from super chats like Sinister, super thanks if you're watching later, to Patreon, Venmo, Cash App if you want to do one-time things, and more. All of that on the website, betterthanember.com, along with all the other links I've referenced today, the gender science, the GSM resources, and of course the merch store, some of which are fundraiser items. I mean, my goodness, I can't even go through all the things. There are so many things. Like for instance, it's very tiny and I'm on the wrong screen. Hold please. The Space Pride flag, the new Space Pride flag, that's set for like a horizontal screen, whatever. Bunch of stuff on the website. So do take a look, make use of it. And most of all, send me money so I can afford food. I very much appreciate it. And as always, remember, you don't have to live a lie because a liar tells you that you have to. Like and share the stream instead, and we'll see you next time. Mwah. Thanks to all our patrons and top-level members for January. Miranda, Karen Butcher, Jessica the Trans Metal Alchemist, Robin Webster, Maya Adkisson, Jimmy Tux, Ian Chen, Lilith, Ember Lynn, The Barely Bearable Atheist, Eric Wander, Jason Jacoby, Lil of All Trades, Deviant Outcast, Secular Feelinist, Kelly King, the Detroit Atheist Queen, Geo Sam, Thriver Scapegoat, The Godless Engineer, Why Because Weed Bro, and Katie Bluebird. And you can add your name here next month by signing up at patreon.com/betterthanember or by joining Emberships here on YouTube at the Cinder level, which also includes all the custom emojis, tons of member-exclusive content, member-only live streams, and a bunch of other stuff. I deeply appreciate all the supporters who keep this channel going. Thank you so much. Because of you, we're building a wonderful community that I'm very proud of.
Just like a spark that's breaking out, can't make a stop.